Middle name.
Are we ready, Angela?
Yes, Chairman.
Shall I start?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody to the LAFCo meeting for March 17th. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm assuming everybody had corned beef and cabbage for lunch. And if not, maybe tonight. And everybody's wearing green, I see. Forgive me later on. I've been having many technical issues with my internet today throughout the day. So if I drop off, maybe the vice chair can step in for a moment or two. Hopefully that I've got it resolved now, but
well, Chairman, I'm sorry. I do want to point out that our Vice Chair, Mike O'Neill, is not, oh, here, he just joined us. 1 second. Never mind.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. And so hopefully nothing goes wrong and we're good to go. So I'd like to call the meeting of San Mateo County LAFCo, as I say, for today, March 17th, to order. It appears on my clock to be 2:32, and we're going to continue to meet via teleconference as we've done for the last year. The board chambers that LAFCo uses for our meetings is currently not open to the public for public meetings. So at this point, I would ask Madam Clerk to explain how both the written comments and the spoken public comments can be made by anyone who's attending the meeting. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Chairman Slocum. For those attending the meeting on the Zoom video conference, we will use the raised hand feature in order to organize any public comments. During the general public comment period and for each item on the regular agenda, I will ask those members of the public who wish to comment to click the raised hand feature to speak on that agenda item. For those joining by phone, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. When you hear your name called, I will prompt you to unmute your microphone and inform you that you may begin speaking. You will have 2 minutes. Please note that members of the public must wait for the prompt in connection with each agenda item before using the raise hand function. For example, you cannot raise your hand during item number 3 if you wish to speak on item number 5. Written comments that were submitted in advance will be read by staff during the discussion of the appropriate agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We appreciate that. And before we move on to item number 1 and roll call and so forth and so on, I'd like to just welcome Redwood City Councilwoman Diana Reddy as our new alternate city member. And let's give a big round of applause and thank you to Council Member Reddy for her willingness to serve as an alternate on LAFCo. Diana, thank you so much. And I didn't hear a round of applause, but that's okay. Let's see. And now we'll move on, I think, to roll call. Is that right?
I'm sorry, Rob, since Diana, we do have her, do we need to swear her in first before roll call, or should we proceed with roll call?
No, we can proceed with roll call.
Thank you. Commissioner Cosgrove?
Here.
Commissioner Draper?
Here.
Commissioner Horsley?
Here.
Commissioner Lohman?
Here.
Commissioner Warbach?
Here.
Vice Chair O'Neill?
Here.
Chairman Slocum?
Yes, here. Thank you.
And other alternate members present, along with Diana Reddy, are Katie Martin and Jim O'Neill. And staff present is Rob Bartoli. Martha might not be able to join us today, but we also have Timothy Fox, legal counsel. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's move on now, if we could, to item number 2, which is the consent agenda. It looks like there are 3 items. Approval of the action minutes and LAFCO file number 2101, a proposed annexation. And third, a LAFCO file number 21-012, which is a proposed annexation of 155 Grove Drive. So is there a motion to approve item A, which is the minutes?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
I'll second.
And Mr. Fox, can we have that motion include A, B, and C, or should we take them separately?
Sorry, lost my unmute button. It can be done as a single motion.
Okay, very good. So it's a single motion to approve A, B, and C. I think the motion was made by Horsley and seconded by, I didn't catch it. But Madam Clerk, do you want to call the roll?
Thank you. Commissioner Cosgrove,
Yes.
Commissioner Draper,
yes,
Commissioner Horsley,
yes,
Commissioner Loman,
yes,
Commissioner Warbach,
yes,
Vice Chair O'Neill,
yes,
Chair Slocum.
Yes,
Thank you.
motion passes. Move on to item number 3 now, which is a presentation of the multi-jurisdictional local hazard mitigation plan update by San Mateo County, and I believe staff will be presenting on item number 3.
Thank you and good afternoon, Chair Slocum and Commissioners. The presentation will be conducted by Dan Belleville, who is the San Mateo County Public Safety Communications Director, and Caroline Blady, who is the Director of the County Office of Sustainability, and I will turn it over to them.
Thank you, Rob, and good afternoon, Commissioners. A pleasure to be here. And Rob, while I pull up the slide deck, I think Dan needs to be able to have access to speak while I get the slides ready.
Hi, Carolyn. Is Dan under DTB? Because
DB, Dan Belleville, Director of OES. Maybe
My guess is that he's DTB in the.
in the, I'm
could-
sorry, as his name.
Could be.
Oh, I don't have a Dan on here.
There's a DTB in the attendees list, though, I believe.
I'll give that person permission to speak really quick to confirm if that is Dan.
That's me. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. So
Oh, joining as a panelist in 1 second.
Carolyn, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Dan. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for bearing with me. So I'm on board now. Rob, thank you, and to the team for getting me on board. So as Carolyn's loading up the slide deck here, my name is Dan Belleville, and I've actually transitioned from Public Safety Communications downstairs in our Regional Operations Center to the Office of Emergency Services. It seems very timely and noteworthy that I'm actually calling in from the Emergency Operations Center, because we're going to talk about mitigating the potential disasters. I've actually been in this building now for 11 straight months, as you all know. It's absolutely unprecedented for this county and the state to have been in the Emergency Operations Center and have it activated for 11 straight months. And I expect it will be here for several more months, and it'll probably be a total of 18 more months, or excuse me, 18 months before we go back to our routine duties. And so it's been pretty eventful. I can report as early as the last 6 or 8 weeks that on January 9th, we had 6 concurrent emergency events. We actually had 5 wildland fires in the month of January when we had those high wind events. And they were not small fires. It was between us and Santa Cruz, and they were between 10 and 40 acres. So the incidents keep stacking on more frequently. They tend to be more devastating. So we think this is an important topic, the Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan. The acronym's a mouthful, but this one is a beast. I'm actually charged and responsible through the county to deliver this plan, but I need a lot of partners to get it done. Carolyn and her team from Office of Sustainability have been absolutely fabulous in helping us shape all the elements that are required of FEMA in order to deliver this plan. So it's my staff, it's Carolyn's staff. We have Ann Lugwood on board. She's our project manager, but it takes a lot of people to get this delivered. And it's interesting because I've been in this business as a first responder for multiple decades now. And before 2000, they were basically a couple of sheets of paper, maybe fire and planning would look at it, fill out some paperwork and submit it. And now they are inches thick. They include multiple jurisdictions, and it entitles us to FEMA money if we encounter a disaster like we've experienced with COVID and the CZU fire and some of the fires that we witnessed in January. So I won't take any more time. I'm going to tag team with with Carolyn so that she can share about 10 slides with you. We'll be open for questions if there are any. But appreciate you, Chairman Slocum and the other commissioners. It's nice to be with you, and thank you for giving us the time. So Carolyn, I'll turn it over to you, please.
Great, thank you. And can somebody confirm you can see the slides and can hear me?
Can't see. Yeah.
We cannot see your slides.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Okay, how about that?
That's it,
Yeah.
Carolyn.
There you go.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Really excited to be here. As Dan said, Office of Sustainability has had a great partnership with Office of Emergency Services. And as Dan pointed out, the major climate impacts we've seen over the last year, wildfire smoke, heat, of course, the pandemic has really brought hazards and planning to the forefront of our thinking. So the hazard mitigation plan is, let's see, okay, I can, there we go. Hazard mitigation planning is something we do every 5 years. Our last plan was adopted in 2016. And the planning effort's done using a structured FEMA process where we assess the hazards and risks, and then we identify actions, mitigating actions that jurisdictions will take. And the actions are meant to reduce the level of injury, property damage, and community disruption for major events. And we're approaching this with a lens of building resilience for all San Mateo County communities and working to ensure equitable representation in the development of the plan. And what a plan allows us to do is it makes us eligible for various types of pre and post-disaster community assistance, such as grants and from FEMA and the state. And I'll note that we're using a multi-jurisdictional approach. In some counties, an individual county can just do their own plan, but we've chosen to approach this with a broad collaborative framework. So a little context about mitigation and how this fits together. Of course, when we think about emergencies, we're looking for prevention, preparing for emergencies, responding to a disaster when it occurs. We go through a recovery phase, and then the mitigation phase is really what this is focused on. And this is something we do continuously on a 5-year cycle. We report to FEMA on our implementation progress. So it's really more than a plan that sits on the shelf. We actually report on our progress and actively move towards mitigating the risks that we've identified. So who's participating in the San Mateo County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan? We have a series of what's called annex partners. And annex partners can be eligible entities such as cities, towns, counties, school districts, special districts. There's specific criteria around that. And the list as of this morning, we have all 20 cities in the county participating, 14 special districts, making a total of 35. We have 3 additional special districts that are considering participating, not listed here. We're still waiting to hear from them, but that's San Mateo County Harbor District, Montara Sanitary District, and the Granada Community Service District. So you can see it's a large collaborative effort, but really gives us that holistic approach. So what risks do we look at when we assess hazards and mitigate them? You can see the list here. These are called primary hazards. So for example, under climate change, we're going to have things like wildfire and other what we call secondary hazards. But this gives you a sense of the breadth. So sort of these natural disasters, human-caused disasters, and what's called technological hazards. So here's a few examples of some typical mitigating actions. Maybe doing seismic retrofits, looking at redundancy of systems, planning for power safety shutoffs from an infrastructure standpoint. We certainly saw that last fall, with the rolling power safety shutoffs. Some of the benefits of hazard mitigation plans, of course, we'll have the plan, which lays out a roadmap, but it makes us eligible for certain types of grant funding, as I mentioned earlier. And using this regional approach and sort of understanding the risks and the vulnerabilities, then we can team up across jurisdictions to apply for funding. And really, we're reducing the negative impacts of potential natural hazards and building strong regional communities. And also, this provides a great framework for us to build our regional collaboration. Other benefits of hazard mitigation plans, there's potential financial benefit with communities to improve what's called the community rating system score, which can lower flood insurance by actively planning for and mitigating floods. So there's also some immediate financial benefit. Of course, equity is a priority, and we've really made that a cornerstone of this planning process, and we'll continue to do that throughout the implementation over the next 5 years. But in the planning process, we have 50% of the community, or the steering committee, are community-based organizations, and 50% are public agencies. This is new. This is not something that we had done in the previous plan. And really the reason for this is we want those community partners right at the table, helping to guide the process. We've also developed a recommendations paper on social vulnerability and local hazard mitigation planning. We're going to hold workshops with the annex partners as well as the steering committee to educate them about the disparities experienced by underserved communities and build shared understanding. And this really will help sort of level set our knowledge as we think about equity. We have included equity goals and objectives in the LHMP as part of the core drivers for how the work will be done. And that will ensure mitigation plans acknowledge and address those disparities in a real intentional way through the process. We've developed a website with translation capabilities and surveys in 6 languages to ensure access. We're also contracting with CBO partners to assist with getting the word out to people living in the community. We know that those networks can really effectively reach out and get input from community members. The steering committee meetings are open public meetings, and there'll be 2 public workshops. And as I said, in addition to incorporating equity as a cornerstone into the plan development of ourselves, in that portion is really thinking about the implementation framework and engaging CBO partners. We're on a very fast timeline. As you can see, we're well in the way here. A lot of fantastic work has been done to identify the partners. We've actually held a sort of an onboarding process. And as I mentioned, we have 3 more partners that may join us. But we are on a pretty tight timeline, but we feel confident we can do it, and we can do it in a way that we can engage the community. The steering committee meets every 4th Monday of the month, and we had that first meeting February, and that will go through July. So that is a very quick overview. Dan mentioned Ann Ludwig, who we brought on as a contract resource to OES to help in the development of the plan. So with that, I will hopefully stop sharing and be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Carolyn, for the presentation, and thank you, Dan. Commissioners, are there questions? And if so, just you don't have to raise your hand, but just feel free to ask a question.
Herbie, go ahead.
Thanks. Is the coastside fire protection district one of the 3 people that you're considering? They certainly ought to be part of the effort.
Let's see. Ann, if you are on, I know you have the list handy.
Coastside as of today is not, but we did chat with them, but their assets will be identified through the county. So they've not elected to come on as a district, but again, their assets and the pieces that are of interest to them will be included in the plan.
Okay, I have a second question. I attended a meeting of the Mid-Coast Community Council where there was a very persuasive presentation about the possibility of Quarry Park causing a horrible canopy fire that could wipe out all of El Granada. I'm just bringing this up because it really is a legitimate possibility, and somebody ought to worry about it.
I can summarize for the most part, Commissioner, that that is one of the areas and a number of areas that we are concerned about in the county. There are a number of different fronts that we're following up on in terms of data that we're collecting, research that's been done that will be part of the plan to identify that location and other locations as part of what we will ultimately submit. But I have made a note of it to make sure that that doesn't get missed. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment about that as well? I've been concerned about that for like 10 years, and I feel like I was, alone in the desert. Nobody paid much attention to it because so many people think that the trees there are home for butterflies and birds. In any case, we did do a major project in that area. And the particular guys, I didn't see his presentation, but I gather what he was indicating is that a crown fire is what we have to be concerned with. And he thought that what we were doing in terms of like doing a lower vegetation or what we call ladder fuels, waste of time. He actually has it backwards. The only way you get a crown fire, as far as I know, Dan probably knows about this better than I, is if you have ladder fuels, meaning that all that stuff that is on the ground is able to catch fire and climb up the tree. That's why they call it ladder fuels, because it's ladders right up into the crown. That part's true. But we have been working on fire breaks. The trees have been growing there for 100 years. The county never planted any of them. They were planted by the developers, and the people who bought homes up there, they were happy to have the trees at the time, because if you don't, you'd have to be a windswept hill. So we're not unaware of it, but that guy's had it completely backwards in his presentation, that crown fires occur only because you have ladder fuels down below. Am I generally correct?
Yes, Commissioner Horsley, that is true. For the most part, the crown fires do ladder, as you've described, and the more fuel that's on the surface tends to pick up with the winds and carry those embers, which exacerbate the crown fires. But I will say, and we all know this, we're seeing wind speeds that we've never, ever seen for, ever. When I was in the fire service, they were 60-mile-an-hour winds. Now they're 90-mile-an-hour winds. So all bets are off on certain conditions because it just gets so chaotic in terms of the weather conditions. So you may see more crown spread through the crown, but you're right. In general, it starts at the bottom, it throws the embers, and then that creates the crown fire, which then speeds up the speed with which the fire moves throughout the geographic area.
Quick comment on that. The presentation was Keith Mangold. I just before this meeting got an email with the link. I can't grab it right now, but the entire presentation is online, maybe through the Mid-Coast Council, but you could see the whole thing. So I missed the presentation, but I want to go look at it. I had two quick questions for the group. I'm on the Montero board and know all the Granada people. The last slide went through real quick, but what is the process of actually joining? Is it just calling somebody, or do we have to fill out a form?
Carolyn,
And do you want to? Okay. Yes, there is a form that to be filled out, and then we can get all the information to them about the meetings and the timing and kind of all of that. So if there's somebody in particular you want us to contact, happy to do that.
Can I just give you my email real quick?
Sure.
It's real short. It's Rick, RIC, at mwsd.net. And I can get the info to Granada.
So Ann is tracking those things daily for us, Commissioner, whether or not we get additional folks joining. So there are a lot of logistics every single day with this, with the number of people that are involved and all the elements of it. So she'll track that and follow up, and we're happy to do that for you. So thank you.
I have a
And-
couple questions.
Just the other quick question, real quick, is we have a sewer authority on the coast, which is a joint powers agreement. It's technically not a special district because of that, but is that the kind of group? This is sewer processing for the whole coast side. Is that a group that you would want in your group also?
And do you want to answer that? I think that's part of one of the group that one we discussed. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you. Yes, JPA is not eligible under the FEMA guidelines to prepare and submit their own annex plan. But we have encouraged that JPA to contact, and we've provided them with contacts to the organizations that they serve who are submitting their own annex plans. And so they can participate as a stakeholder in the annex plans for those communities.
Okay, yeah, all three groups will then be represented anyway, so that's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay. You had mentioned that the plan will identify projects and therefore be eligible for funding. In the identification of the projects, will the different governmental agencies be obligated to do those projects that are identified?
And do you want to go?
Yeah. Sure. Yes, the obligation is that when a community identifies a need based on the risk, they prioritize their plans by risks. So a community might identify the number one thing in their plan as vegetation management associated with fire risk. The expectation is that the community will continue to implement measures associated with all those things in their plans, whether or not they get grant funding. However, they're generally, the expectation is that they make some progress. For the most part, in our 2016 plan, not all of the measures were completed. So it is understood that perhaps some measures might not be able to be completed in the 5-month timeframe. They do suggest that we work on a priority basis.
I think
So
the five-year timeframe. Yeah.
Yes.
So would it be reasonable to say that whatever projects, the high priority projects, should show up in their budget somewhere at some level?
In order for progress to be made, there would need to be some budgeting commitment of either staff and or additional monies available to make progress on those plans.
So it could be either a capital or I'll call it a programmatic plan to implement the identified projects. So that means, I guess, when we do our municipal service reviews, we'd want to make sure that there was some consideration within those reviews on how they're planning to fund and implement these identified hazards. Just a thought for the future municipal service reviews.
Yes, and the plan itself, the annex plan, requires as one aspect of the plan that the entities identify how they're going to implement their measures. So they identify what they want to do. They're also supposed to identify how they're going to do that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Draper, to follow up on the MSR question, we do have that as a locally adopted policy for our MSR reviews to include hazard mitigation plans, along with issues regarding water quality and conveyance of water to public agencies. But we do have in our adopted policies to take a look at their mitigation and hazards that the agency faces.
Great. Thank you.
And then Commissioner Draper, one of the key advantages to having the plan is then, as I think you probably know, is getting that access to grant funding. So, for that project, might not have to be fully funded, for example, say in a CIP, but then, if there's material progress in developing out a project, then getting that grant funding. And the advantage to this regional approach versus a single jurisdiction is then there may be risks that are across multiple jurisdictions. So the development of these solutions can be more holistic. So, that's one of the advantages to doing the plan this way in particular.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rohrbach, this is Dan again. Just more specific to your question earlier, Carolyn described this we have a core planning team and we have a steering committee team, and there's a cross section of everyone. There's police and fire and planning and parks and different jurisdictions. And just so you know, on our core planning team, on the fire representation, we have Chief Cosgrave from Coastside Fire. So he is on the core planning team. So I think he's looking out for your interests. But if there are any questions that you might want to follow up with regard to your question, that would be a direct pipeline so you could get some accurate information.
Thank you. Chief Cosgrave is a wonderful resource, so thank you.
Thank you.
And I would just like to thank Carolyn, Dan, and Ann for the presentation. I was part of the 2016 LHMP when I was in county planning, and it is a large document with a lot of moving pieces. So it's a lot of effort, but they seem to have put together a very excellent planning team for this process.
Thanks, Rob. And you helped us because we're sort of bridging from Rob's previous work. And as I mentioned, these things are getting bigger and more complex and more important than ever before. So they have to be well orchestrated. And it takes a giant team. And I don't think Rob had that giant team before. So we're going to build on his work. And this hopefully will be one of the best ones in the state, with the complexity and elements in it. So hopefully we'll be very proud of it towards the end of this calendar year.
Other questions from commissioners? There being none, I want to thank you, Dan, and thank you, Carolyn, for the presentation, for all the time and effort that's gone into this. It's important work, and keep up the focus. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We'll turn now to item number 4 on our agenda, which is public comments. And just a word of information about this before we ask Madam Clerk for public comment. I've asked if we could move public comments at our next meeting up to the front end of the agenda rather than sort of in the middle of it. And if there are no significant objections, I think Martha and Rob are prepared to do that for the next meeting. So then, Madam Clerk, public comments, either written or are there hands raised?
Thank you, Chairman. And we did not get any written comments for items not on the agenda, but I do see one hand raised, and I will go ahead and call on Carlisle Ann Young. Please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Hi, I actually have my hand raised for the last presentation. Were you not taking any public questions at that time, or you just forgot? Because it's on the agenda, so that's what I wanted to talk about. Can you start me over or answer?
I will ask our counsel. I think as a presentation, I am not sure if we had to open it up for public comment since it was only a
Never mind. I spent 36 seconds of my time now on that. I'm just going to talk about it since wasn't able to be recognized when I had my hand up. One of the questions I had is if Caltrans is one of the partners, because a year ago, the county came out with their CTMP, which is the Comprehensive Traffic Management Plan for the Mid-Coast. And one of the things I immediately noticed was there was nothing in there about emergency evacuation. And then that was in January before the pandemic shut everything down. So I went to the Emergency Services Council meeting and talked to CAL FIRE Chief Cox at that meeting and someone else who was in charge, I think Supervisor Canepa was there, but so far nada. And the MCC, ever since the wildfires, have been having a lot of different presentations about fires. And by the way, crown fires are caused by high winds carrying burning embers that can ignite roof tops and treetops. So it doesn't necessarily always start on the ground. If it's located, a fire's in one spot, it could be windborne to another spot. So that's what the crown fire issue is in El Granada. People are losing their insurance, but all the most recent funding for fuel reduction went to county parks, and the county tree ordinance has not been updated in years. It's been stalled out. So we've been asking ever since, I guess, September, if they could please update that ordinance, and they haven't yet. So I'm just wondering, you know, if Caltrans will be able to be a partner, since we're stuck here between Pacifica and Half Moon Bay. There's lots of eucalyptus that line the highway, and we will not be able to get out if those are set ablaze. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. And with that, Chairman Slocum, we do not have any more hands raised.
Very good then, Madam Clerk. Thank you very much. We'll turn our attention now to item number 5 on the agenda, which is the consideration of adoption of proposed work program and LAFCo budget for FY 21-22. And I guess Rob will kick us off here.
Thank you, Chair Slocum and Commissioners. Government Code Section 56381 requires that LAFCo holds a public hearing and adopt a proposed net operating budget by May 1 and a final operating budget by June 15th. The item before the Commission today is the consideration of the draft proposed LAFCo budget for fiscal year 2021-2022. The proposed operating budget for the upcoming year is $706,000, equating to a 1/3 apportionment of $210,000 approximately, which is an increase of about $29,000 from fiscal year 2021 budget. Included in the proposed budget are carrying salary increase and benefit increases, $5,000 in a one-time funding for the purchase of 2 new laptops to replace existing computers needed for staff to work remotely, approximately $10,000 in Cal LAFCo conference and staff workshop attendance, and a $10,000 increase in county council appropriations for a total of $40,000. Cal LAFCo, along with CSAC, which is State Association of Counties, the League of Cities, and the California Special Districts Association, is planning to hold in-person annual conference and staff workshops this upcoming year. The meetings and conference appropriations is estimated about $10,000 based on 4 commissioners' attendance by 2 staff members for both the annual Cal LAFCo conference in Orange County and for the staff conference in 2022, which also is proposed to occur in Orange County. The total budget appropriation for county council is $40,000. This is a $10,000 increase over the current fiscal year. And this increase is in anticipation of several proposed studies that will come, proposals and studies that will come before the commission this upcoming fiscal year that will require additional county council review and support. Including in this is the West Bay Sanitary District divestiture of solid waste, the CSA County Service Area 11 annexation potential, and several MSRs. One note regarding membership costs. San Mateo LAFCo is a member of both Cal LAFCo and the Special Districts Association, and we are able to purchase our liability insurance because we are a member of CSDA through the California Special Districts Risk Management Authority. And LAFCo gains a lot through memberships both with Cal LAFCo and CSDA. With Cal LAFCo, it allows staff and the commission access to LAFCO-focused training, conferences, and legislative updates, along with the access for our risk management. CSDA also keeps staff apprised of issues that are special, that are interest to special districts and to LAFCO. The current estimated fund balance is $100,008. Of these funds, $61,000 is allocated to reserve fund, the same amount that was allocated to the reserve in fiscal year 2021, allowing for $38,000 to reduce the cost to member agencies. And this reserve amount is approximately 9% of the overall LAFCo budget. In the proposed 21-22 budget, consulting costs are left at zero currently. The process for selecting a consultant for the MSR for the East Palo Alto, the City of East Palo Alto Sanitary District, and West Bay Sanitary District MSR is moving forward. This study is being paid for by developers and will not be charged to member agencies and with no costs associated to LAFCo. Once the contract is executed, the developers will then deposit the corresponding funds to LAFCo for these consultant charges, which will balance out. So once we have those funds and once we have a cost estimated, those costs and funds will be added to the fiscal 21-22 budget actuals. In any event, as I had mentioned, there's no net effect on the LAFCo budget. As of note on the timing of the billing for the 1/3 apportionment, in previous budget cycles, the commission adopted the draft proposed budget before May 1 and the final proposed budget before June 15th as prescribed in the code. In September, the commission would then adopt a revision to balance to the budget to reflect the final actuals, which come typically after July 1 from the county for the prior fiscal year. After these revisions in September, then LAFCo staff would transmit the budget to the county controller's office to invoice the member agencies for their share of the 1/3 apportionment. However, waiting to invoice the cities and districts until September has resulted in a negative cash balance to LAFCO because there was a gap between July 1 and the September billing. To address this issue, LAFCO will transmit the adopted budget to the controller's office by June 15th after the final adopted budget occurs by the commission, so the controller can expedite invoicing to funding agencies for their share of the LAFCO budget. In item number 7, which is the LAFCO budget policy, there's also a discussion of this process. Touching on some highlights from the proposed work plan, staff anticipates several municipal service reviews coming before the commission in fiscal year 21-22, including the South San Francisco and Westboro Water District MSRs, the before mentioned consultant-led MSR for East Palo Alto, Sanitary District in West Bay, and for County Service Area 11, along with a number of applications and proposals. Staff continues to work on the LAFCO budget audits for both 18 and 19, and we'll be starting 2021 or 19 and 20 very shortly. Staff also will continue to work on and review relevant plans, project and general plan updates, and we'll start implementing updates to the LAFCO website as the county is also going through a website refresh. The budget committee met on March 3rd and unanimously recommended approval of the draft proposed 21-22 budget. And staff would like to thank Commissioner Draper Horsley and Commissioner Mike O'Neill for their thoughtful input on the proposed budget. The recommendation is to open the public hearing, accept public comments on this item, consider and approve by motion the proposed budget, and then direct the executive officer to schedule the final 2021-22 budget for a public hearing at the May 19th, 2021 commission meeting, and circulate that to all the counties, cities, and special districts. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you for the presentation, and thanks to the subcommittee who worked on the budget matter. Madam Clerk, could we take public comment now for item number 5, either written or in person?
Thank you, Chairman Slocum, and thank you, Rob. We did not receive any written comments for item number 5, and we do not have any hands raised at the moment for this item.
All right, then we can turn to commissioner questions of Rob on the budget. Are there questions from any commissioner? No questions. So, Madam Clerk, let's close the public comment period for item number 5 and perhaps call the roll.
Yeah, I move that
Make
we
them.
approve, I move that we approve item number 5, the LAFCO budget.
Thank you.
Second,
Thank you. Commissioner Cosgrove,
Yes.
Commissioner Draper,
yes,
Commissioner Horsley,
Yes.
Commissioner Loman,
Yes.
Commissioner Rohrbeck,
Yes.
Vice Chair O'Neill,
Yes.
Chair Slocum.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Your motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Move to item number 6 at this point, which is a consideration of revised LAFCO schedule of processing fees. And Rob, is this your turn?
Yes, it is. So thank you, Chair. So the Cordisi-Knox-Hertzberg Act governing LAFCO operations authorizes the Commission to establish a schedule of fees for processing applications and provides that the fees shall not exceed the estimates of reasonable cost for providing this service. The fees were last revised in 2019, and as part of the 1920 budget, as a recommendation by the Budget Committee, staff was directed to prepare an update of the fees every 2 years. And so we are in that 2-year cycle once again. The proposed update to the annexation detachment fees takes into account an increase in salary and benefits for staff, the addition of a full-time management analyst position, and the shared secretarial position, and the additional complexity and requirements related to processing applications. On average, the fees for minor and major annexations are proposed to increase about 25%. The staff rates include not only the salary and benefits, but also overhead costs, including IT costs, rent, and other county charges. County council costs for applications are also built into those fees. The application fees are similar to other urban LAFCOs, including Alameda, Contra Costa, Marin, Napa, Orange County, Santa Clara, and Sonoma LAFCOs. Another change to the proposed fee schedule is that fees for consolidation, merger, and dissolutions and the creation of a subsidiary district is proposed to be moved to an actual cost as proposed instead of from one fixed number, as these actions vary greatly in the complexity and required staff time to process those proposals. In addition to these changes, the LAFCO fee schedule currently did not have a fee for the divestiture of a power from a special district, and that divestiture would be charged at an actual cost. The Commission has historically adopted fees with the goal of recovering a larger share of processing costs for individual proposals while not discouraging boundary changes. And on at the Budget Committee meeting on March 3rd, the committee recommended approval of the revised fee schedule. The proposed action to the Commission is by motion to direct LAFCO staff to circulate the fee schedule to all the county, cities, and special districts and other interested parties, and for the consideration of adoption at the May 19th meeting. If the Commission wishes to move forward with the fee update, the draft fees will then be circulated, placed at the May meeting, and if adopted in May, then would go into effect 60 days later. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Rob. Madam Clerk, could we take public comment at this juncture?
Thank you, Chairman. And as a reminder, anybody calling by phone may press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. And for item number 6, we also did not receive any written comment, and I do not see any hands raised, Chairman.
Very good, thank you. Are there commissioner questions or comments on item 6?
I do see Commissioner Horsley with his hand raised.
Of course. Chair recognizes Commissioner Horsley.
Well, thank you, Chair. Unless there's questions from the other commissioners, I would make a motion to direct LAFCO staff to circulate the draft LAFCO budget policy to the county, city, special districts, and other interested parties, and place the consideration of the adoption at the May 19th, 2021 Commission meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Cosgrove,
Yes.
Commissioner Draper,
yes,
Commissioner Horsley,
Yes.
Commissioner Loman,
Yes.
Commissioner Rohrbach,
Yes.
Vice Chair O'Neill,
Yes.
Chairman Slocum.
Yes,
Thank you, Chair. Your motion passes.
thank you, Madam Clerk. Move to item number 7, excuse me, which is Budget and Policy Committee and consideration of draft LAFCO budget policy. Rob is
Thank you,
going
Chair.
to lead this.
So the commission has contracted with the County of San Mateo for staffing, office space, and general services and supplies and legal counsel since 1996. Since that time, the commission and staff has operated consistent with county budget and accounting practices. But in order to memorialize these practices in a more formal manner, it's recommended that the commission adopt a budget policy to serve as guidance to both the commission staff, the controller's office, and to the county budget office. The draft policy includes LAFCO funds. A statement regarding LAFCO funds is separate from the county general fund because we are now in the trust fund. The budget adoption process and the policy of having the difference between estimated fund actuals and the actual fund balance either being added or deducted from adopted reserves, the 1/3 apportionment billing process and the timing, again, with the process occurring for the billing after the final budget instead of after September revisions, payroll administration, contract approval and execution for less than $5,000 for contracts that are already budgeted, and the policy regarding the reserves. And in feedback from the budget committee regarding the reserves, it was recommended that the reserve shall not exceed 10% of the LAFCO budget, and fiscal year 21-22, the proposed reserve is 9%. And again, that number is carrying over from the previous year. So it's a memorialization basically of many policies that are already in place that county staff and the commission follow. This has come up out of our audits and just memorializing it in a better way so we can say, yes, we have this policy in place instead of, and especially because our budget and accounting processes occur with many different departments in the county. And this will help both staff at the LAFCO and the county follow these processes. So the recommendation is then by motion, direct the staff to circulate the draft policy to county, city, and special districts and other interested parties, and again, places for adoption on the May 19th meeting. And that concludes my report.
Thank you for the presentation. Madam Clerk, could we check on public comment for this item number 7?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We did not receive any written comments for item 7A, and we do not have any hands raised at the moment. Thank you.
Very good. Are there any commissioner questions or comments on item 7?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
How will these policies be housed or, I know, kept? They're different than the policies than for applications. And I guess I'm recommending that there be another binder called something like administrative policies, because it occurs to me that as a trustee entity, over time, we may think of other policies that we need, like on records management or you name it, but they're more administrative type of things to commemorate the relationship between LAFCO and the county. And so the first question is, how will they be housed? And could there be like another binder called administrative policies?
That's an excellent question, Commissioner Draper, and I think it would be wise to keep them as either two separate, or at least if you have one document as separate sections and delineate that in that form. I think an administrative binder or administrative document that housed this, policy, records management, as you mentioned, other procedures that we would use for internal for staff or for the commission, I think would be a useful document to occur and create as a separate document from the other policies that we have seen on MSRs, outside service agreements. I think the administrative ones, I think we'll be building on those in the next couple of years as we either do provisions or as additional items come up, like you had mentioned, because now we're in the trust fund, so we might identify issues that we did not identify before.
Right, and I just didn't want subsequent staff to say, when did we take that up with LAFCo, and have to search through the records. So I really recommend that there be either a different chapter or a separate binder or something so that it can be easily found by all.
Thank you.
Those concludes my question.
Thank you for the questions. Other commissioner comments or questions? Madam Clerk, I don't think there are additional questions or comments. Could we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve item 7A, direct LAFCO staff to circulate the draft LAFCO budget policy. Oh wait, that's the last item, wasn't it? Yeah, no, this one, special districts and other interested parties, and replace the consideration of adoption at the May 19th, 2021 commission meeting.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Cosgrove,
Yes.
Commissioner Draper,
Yes,
Commissioner Horsley,
Yes.
Commissioner Lohman,
Yes.
Commissioner Rohrbach,
Yes.
Vice Chair O'Neill,
Yes.
Chairman Slocum.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Your motion passes.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. We'll turn our attention to item number 8. There's two parts to this, A and B, and it's legislative and policy committee matters. A is a consideration of updates to procedures of outside service agreement policies for water or for city water extensions. Rob?
Thank you, Chair. So in 2019, the commission adopted an updated outside service agreement policy for instances in which cities or districts requested water or sewer service from a property owner outside of an agency boundary. And LAFCO is able to approve those extensions if the territory is within the sphere of influence in anticipation of future annexations or to address a public health threat. Recently, staff received an inquiry from a property owner in the town of Woodside that underscored a need for a revision to this policy. A new house was proposed on a vacant piece of property in the town, which was located within the City of Redwood City Water Service Area, which is established by the SFPUC, the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. So in the case of cities that having established water service areas that include territory in other cities, pretty unique in the state of California, is not really contemplated by 56133, which governs outside service agreements, because the intent of 56133 is to allow the provisions of those services within an agency sphere of influence in anticipation of future annexation to that agency. And we're not anticipating that the service provider at Redwood City providing water to a property in the town of Woodside would then require that property owner to detach from the town of Woodside and annex to the city of Redwood City. The current policy, like I had mentioned, only addresses those extensions of service from a city or an unincorporated area or to an area outside a sphere of influence to another city when there's a public health threat. The policy is silent on the question that we received regarding that property in Woodside. And silence on areas when there's water service by a city to another incorporated area, but within the agency's established water district. In order to address this unique service pattern related to the SFPUC water retailers, a revision specific to city water extensions to other cities is recommended. And the general summation of the policy is for incorporated areas that receive water service from another municipality, it is not anticipated that the provision of this water service would require a property to detach from one city or annex to another, especially when it's not within the sphere of influence of that city. Since there's no anticipation of a boundary change in conjunction with that service of water, section 56133 would not be applicable to this extension. But to ensure that the water extension was meeting this policy, LAFCO would require notification from the service provider of the extension, and to the executive officer will provide written confirmation that the service is exempt from 56133. For an example of this is the particular area in Woodside. The hatched area is the town boundaries of the town of Woodside. The area in green, is the water service area of Redwood City. The area in purple is Cal Water. So you see the majority of the area that would be east of Highway 280 that's in the town of Woodside is within the Redwood City water service area. On March 4th, the Legislative and Policy Committee recommended approval of this policy. The policy would not apply to districts, as a special district can have territory both in incorporated and unincorporated areas. It would also not apply to city service extensions into unincorporated areas where an outside service agreement or an annexation would be appropriate for future boundary change. In the draft policy, there's a reference to the Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation District, known as BOSCWA, as having a role in setting those service boundaries. In a conversation subsequent to the agenda pack going out with BOSCWA staff, SFPUC, they clarified that SFPUC is the sole agency that sets the water service area boundaries, and staff will make a correction in the draft policy before it is circulated out to all interested parties. And so the recommendation then is to direct staff to circulate the draft policy to the counties, cities, and special districts and other interested parties, and place the policy for consideration on the May 19th agenda.
Thank you, Rob, for the presentation. Madam Clerk, do we take public comment for this item?
I believe we do not take public
We
comment.
would
for
have
this
public
item.
comment if there is any. Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay, I'm sorry. So I do have one hand raised from the public, and I will call on Ms. Carla Ann Young to unmute her microphone and begin speaking.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
It's just a question about this. It's a little confusing to me, but you know, I don't follow LAFCo that carefully. Does this only have to do with people that are within the PUC water district supplier boundaries? Because I'm in Rick's area, MWSD, and we're an independent water, totally independent district. So we don't rely on other outside sources. So you didn't mention unincorporated solely. We're not, you know, near an annexation part to any cities or near their boundary even. So does it only apply to people that are, you know, subject to BOSCWA?
I can answer the question now. I don't want to take up any more of your time, though.
No, that's okay. Go ahead
Okay.
and answer. That was the question.
Okay, so in response to that, through the chair, yes, this is specific to city agencies that are members of BOSCWA that have their boundaries set by SFPUC that are also wholesaler or customers of SFPUC. So districts, including MWSD or Costa County, or not Costa County Water, even though Costa County Water, even though they are a customer of SFPUC, they are a district. So they are allowed to have boundaries in their district that cover both incorporated and unincorporated areas. It's the unique circumstances, particularly on the Bay side, of city water providers with service areas that include adjacent parts of other cities, where those cities or areas are not proposed to detach or annex to other agencies. It's just the provision of water. So that's what the specific policy is for.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Are there other public comments, Madam Clerk, or was that it?
That was the only public comment, but I do see a hand raised from Commissioner Horsley, but no more from the public. Thank you, Chair.
Yep, Chair recognizes Commissioner Horsley.
Thank you. I just wanted to say the idiosyncrasies of my particular district in Redwood City. Water goes all up into Emerald Hills and the city of Redwood City, and of course, parts of Woodside, which is also part of my district. But one of the idiosyncrasies is that I have individuals who are directly connected to the SFPUC, and I have another group called Cordilleras Mutual Water that has a grand total of 18 connections, completely surrounded by Redwood City water. Sort of, it's just interesting that and Redwood City has never been willing to annex them into the Redwood City water system, in spite of the fact that if anything goes wrong in those particular systems, they would end up being impacted. So for example, if there was an earthquake and say and individuals on that Cordilleras water system were cut off from SFPUC. SFPUC has told us that they'll cut off all of Redwood City until they fix that one connection. So it's really kind of an interesting idiosyncrasy.
And LAFCo staff is keenly aware of that particular idiosyncrasy.
Yes, I have been working on it for 10 years, to no avail. So
We appreciate your efforts. Other commissioner comments or questions on item 8A? No, how about we need a motion and a roll call, I believe.
I'll make the motion to direct LAFCO staff to circulate the draft LAFCO policy to cities, counties, special district, other interested parties, and place the policy for consideration of adoption at the end of May 19, 2021 commission meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Commissioner
Clerk?
Sorry, thank you. Commissioner Cosgrove,
Yes.
Commissioner Draper,
Yes.
Commissioner Horsley,
Yes.
Commissioner Loman,
Yes.
Commissioner Rarback,
Yes.
Vice Chair O'Neill,
Yes.
Chairman Slocum.
Yes,
Thank you, Chair. Your motion passes.
thank you. Item 8B is a legislative report. I think this probably is Rob once again.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Chair. This is an information only item. It's still relatively early in the state legislative session, so many of the bills are only starting to be reviewed by state legislative committees. Several of these bills are carryovers from previous legislative sessions, and LAFCo is currently tracking 29 of the bills as of March 5th, and they fall into the various categories that are mentioned in the staff report regarding special district governance, general plan, land use, open meetings, Record Act laws, potential, the Validating Acts, 3 bills regarding water, and an outside service agreement. On March 4th, the LAFCo Legislative Committee reviewed these 29 bills, and currently there's no bills with recommendations from LAFCo other than watch. Since the committee has met, though, LAFCo provided additional information on AB 959, which is affecting 4 open space districts, including the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space. It's sponsored by Assembly Member Mullen, and it will allow for park and open space districts the ability to adopt public nuisance ordinances and establish procedures for baiting these nuisances. The proposed legislation goes on to say that under the district's Principal Act and Public Resource Code, these districts have limited legal tools to prevent unauthorized use of their land, and administrative abatement is a method of addressing these public nuisances due to the fact that all parties with due process and does not require court-based proceedings, and other public agencies, including dependent park districts, already have this authority. The legislative bill goes on to cite examples of nuisances that impact sensitive habitat and wildfire protection zones on park district lands, including illegal water diversions, extensions of private yards onto public property, and unauthorized use of landscaping and stream bed alterations. So we will continue to watch that bill as the legislative session moves forward, and we will update you on any changes on the LAFCo legislative page as well. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Bartoli. We'll move on to item number 9 now.
I just got one quick
Whoops,
question.
sorry, go
Real
ahead.
quick, sorry.
Yeah.
You mentioned that's like park agencies. By any chance, does that also include land trusts?
No, this is specific to public agencies. So like Mid-Penn, I think there are only 4 in the state of California that are formed under that Principal Act, Mid-Penn being the only one in our county.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Other comments or questions? No, there'll be none. There being none, we'll move on to item number 9, which is parts A and B, and they have to do with LAFCo annual report and LAFCo quarterly February 2021 newsletter. I think this is Rob once again.
These are both informational items under the LAFCo annual report. The report discusses the numbers of challenges that LAFCOs have dealt with during the pandemic over the last year or so. The report also highlights on how LAFCO has been able to still provide educational opportunities, including 6 webinars, many of which were recorded by LAFCO Deputy Executive Officer Martha Payotos. LAFCO also notes its continued work on LAFCO-focused legislation and the legislative tracker. And if there's no questions on that, brief highlights from the newsletter. The annual conference for LAFCO, which I had mentioned, is currently scheduled for October 6th through the 8th in Newport Beach. We'll have more information about that soon. And the proposed workshop, the staff workshop, will also be in Newport Beach. And those proposed dates are March 23rd to the 25th of 2022. And that concludes those reports.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners on that item?
Nope.
Very good. We'll move to item number 10. And this is a chance for commissioners to share any reports, updates, announcements. And we'll just go in the roll call order if we could, starting with Commissioner Cosgrove.
None, thank you.
Commissioner Draper.
None, thanks.
Commissioner Horsley.
No reports, thanks.
Commissioner Lohman.
No new comments, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Rohrbach.
I'm good.
Commissioner O'Neill.
No comments, thanks.
And I have no comments. Thank you all. We'll move to item number 11, which is adjournment. And my clock on the wall says we will stand adjourned as of 3:41 for March 17th. Thank you all and have a safe and great day.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
too.